Okay, I was wrong. You can use your action camera in full auto, which is what we do now, with one exception that I'll tell you about a little bit later on in the video. But first, let me explain. I come from a traditional photography background, and then a little bit later on, video production. So that means that you respect the exposure triangle, which is aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. So when action cameras came on the scene about 15 to 20 years ago, and they were mostly automatic, I never really considered it as a serious part of my production workflow, except for like home movies and vacation videos. So when we started our YouTube channel, we purchased the DJI Pocket 3 and the DJI Action 5 to go along with our Action 4. These cameras were chosen because they were able to use manual settings, which I believe was necessary because these videos, unlike my vacation videos, would be published for the general public to consume. So that's when the production nightmares started. If you know anything about video production, there's 1,000 things to do all at once, and you guessed it, all of those things are going to go wrong all at once. So we quickly figured out that going to a location, setting the exposure, moving to another location, setting another exposure, was just going to be too much for a two-man crew. So we just said, screw it. We're going to try full auto and just see what happens. And we were pleasantly surprised. So these are the simple settings that we use for almost every YouTube video that we produce. And remember to hang around for the one setting that we never let the camera choose for us. We shoot in 4K at 30 frames per second unless we're doing slow motion. In that case, we shoot at 60 frames per second. Second, I move to the ISO. So we set the ISO at the lowest range I can get so that it doesn't introduce digital noise into the video. Since I don't want to fuss with setting a fixed shutter speed, I can use exposure compensation. Exposure compensation allows the camera to pick the correct exposure while allowing the user to compensate for how you want the exposure in the video to look. In this case, because I feel like that the camera tends to slightly overexpose the video, I set the exposure compensation for about 1/3 stop under the exposure that the camera thinks is correct. So like I mentioned earlier, there is one setting that I will never allow my camera to set for me, and that is the white balance. The simplest way to think about white balance in your video is the overall color tone. Is it cooler or is it warmer? This becomes important because later on in production, you don't want the same scene to look like it was filmed in the morning with cooler tones, and then just a few seconds later, it looks like it was filmed in the evening with warmer tones. So as a consequence, it's the only setting that I set now manually, and it's pretty easy to do. What I do is a little trick. You put your white balance on auto, allow the camera to find that value for you, then you switch it over to manual and insert that value. Works out pretty quick, it's pretty easy, it's set, and it will not shift during that clip. So those were my simple settings for the DJI Action 5, and by the way, it's the same settings that we use for all of our DJI cameras. So you can rest assured that you can use your action camera on full auto and really get some really good video out of it. And we'll be doing more videos on how to use your action camera or your small sensor cameras for your outdoors adventures just like we do. So if you have any questions on what we've covered in this video or action cameras in general, just make sure to drop a comment in the section below. And as always, while it's raining, you should like, subscribe, and get your butt outside. I'll see you in the next video.